As far as the exam goes, basically what we're looking at is we're looking at the First Amendment chapter. So you've got First Amendment stuff, questions, and you got the outlines up there. I believe I have about 4 or 5 articles to post. One of them, Kemi, was yours that we didn't quite get to, white girl syndrome as you called it. One of them would be the MBA dress code one, so it was the very, very last articles. There weren't very many. But with this in mind, I'm going to have those up tonight, and I will probably post some terms just to narrow it down a little bit more. And then the other part is going to be those end of the chapter questions. The end of the chapter questions from both the First Amendment chapter and from chapter 7, which I believe is dealing with civil rights. We didn't get a chance to get into civil rights, but I wanted to make sure that we had those questions on there. I would venture that roughly, maybe not quite half of those are going to be on the exam. The exam itself, I believe I gave you a 30-pointer. Was it 10 3-point questions? So 30 points, and then 70 points will be in class. I would venture to say that especially for y'all in the 1-hour classes, this one will be more writing than you've used to. So instead of maybe getting 4, you might actually get 5 or 6, a choice of say 5 or 6 out of 8 or 9 5-point questions. And then the rest of that would end up being multiple choice. So this one's going to be a little bit more writing intensive. You got the 30 points obviously from the take home, so you should go in there straight up with 30. And then of course we've got the nation states bonus to figure out, which we're going to figure out at about 4 o'clock on Thursday morning. So that's what we've got. Other than maybe 3 or 4 articles, everything is posted and online. What kind of questions do y'all have at this point? Katie, what kind of questions do you have for the final exam as we begin? No questions. Anybody with any questions?
Hold on.
Okay.
How many times is the word equality in the Constitution?
None.
Oh.
I mentioned that at the tail end of all of the classes, I believe, and it was very, very fleeting because it was probably about the time that old man walked in the room in your class. But I had mentioned to y'all that sometimes discrimination is legal. And I had mentioned the idea of driver's licenses at 16 and out-of-state tuition if you wanted to go to school somewhere else. Well, the other form of it that we kind of talked about in all of the classes was the example of the NBA dress code. And since I struggled to get that in, probably a good bet that that's going to be on there. So, if anybody wants to elaborate or has any questions about that NBA dress code, that would be a good place to start. What else do you have, Kimmy? Anything?
One thing you really stretched was like speech, belief, and action.
Mm-hmm.
And I know belief, you can believe whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
and action and speech are the ones that are what is it? They're more not regulated.
Less protected.
Less protected. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Speech, belief is 100%. Speech is not 100%, but it's not necessarily that far away from it. And then action is going to be the least protected of those 3. Action is going to be the least protected of the 3. So with this in mind, that's basically what we're looking at there is that. Now, as we get started with this, one of the big things to really focus on is going to be the examples. Do you remember the examples when we first got into this and we were just talking about religion? What were some of the examples? What were some of the things that we talked about?
Oh, the guy that wanted to start a church, like the weed church.
Okay, there were several interesting churches that people were talking about. One was the weed church. What else was there?
I can't say the word Petroria, or that weird drug they had.
Peyote.
Peyote.
Okay, so there was the Peyote church, there was the weed church, and then there was the faith healer church.
Wasn't the preacher or that university?
Bob Jones is another one. So when we get started, the key thing on this final, more than anything else probably, is going to be the examples. You're going to have a lot of really specific examples on there. So like the I Am Church, if I'm not mistaken, was the first one we talked about. What was the trick with the I Am Church?
Oh, yeah.
What was at issue when we were talking about I Am? Wow, not a good sign. Go ahead, Walter.
Someone, I forgot who it was, created a fake, and it was basically for profit, sent letters out, and someone
That's right. The guy created a faith, and it was based on what?
Faith healing.
The guy created a church that was based on faith healing, and he sent out letters asking for money.
And because they gave them their money, they were pissed that it wasn't real.
That's exactly what it was. He gave money, or they got money. They gave money to him, and then there was an expectation on their part that indeed they were actually going to be healed by his work. And what did they end up finding?
Not so much.
They found that basically, no, not so much. Did he have to give the money back?
No.
Why not?
He didn't force them to give him the money.
Okay, that's true. He didn't force them. Go ahead, Walter.
So it violated the First Amendment? Or
How so?
by saying, what was that? I don't know. I just remember you saying that.
Okay, his argument was it violated the First Amendment, violated the Free Exercise Clause. And the Free Exercise Clause basically says that people are free to worship what it is that they want to worship. Now, how can you tell if something is a real religion or if somebody's not just making something up?
How long it's been around?
Okay, that's possible. There's a better way. The government looks at something when they try and figure out if something's
Is it sponsored by anybody?
not
How many
sponsored,
followers you have?
No.
not followers.
Oh my goodness.
How long
it,
is
it was like these
staying
criteria.
in
Truth and sincerity.
Truth and sincerity. What does it have to have?
Prove your sincerity of belief.
Yeah, here's the thing. You got to be able to demonstrate. You got to be able to prove that you really believe what it is that your church is calling for. And in the I Am faith, it absolutely, they believed that even though he wasn't a faith healer, that he genuinely believed that he was. And as soon as they believed that, they upheld his First Amendment rights to freely exercise. So those people didn't get anything back. Now, Muhammad, you started to mention like number of followers or longevity. Okay, with this in mind, talking about number of followers and longevity, this goes to Church of Marijuana and this goes to Peyote. How does this deal with those two?